Okay, we're live. Today we are going to be. Let's turn my music down a little bit. We're going to be updating the open source repo for Charles to Angular 14. There was some. Just get a media source going here for my browser, so that we can look at what spurred this stream. Okay, so if we go to GitHub, there was recently a pull request opened on our repo. Or not a pull request, sorry, an issue. This person was asking about if we could update the NGRX Universal Rehydrate library to Angular 14. I'm assuming what they mean by this is that it's not partially Ivy compiled, so you probably get warnings in your console when you install it that say something along the lines of using NGC or the NGCC compiler to convert it to partial Ivy constructions, and then during your build it would then do the full switch over to Ivy instructions, because we can't publish libraries to npm using full Ivy yet. So let's just take a look at the repo. So we have, those are apps, we want the packages. There's a lot of different packages in here. So update's a new one. So let's just take a look and I'll point out what exactly it is that we need to change. So in this package, in the tsconfig lib production JSON, there's this Angular compiler options here, and it's set to compilation mode partial. So what this is telling Angular to do, so let's just run the build for this. Oh, spelled that wrong. Okay, so what this is doing here, if we look, I thought it outputted something about compiling partial Ivy constructions. Let's see, skip. Let's just skip cache so we get a fresh rebuild of it. Oh, there we go. See, compiling with Angular sources in Ivy partial compilation mode. So this package is set up to actually compile itself to Ivy the correct way, or partially compile itself to Ivy the correct way, so that when we publish it, people don't need to go through this additional step of compiling the view engine code to partial Ivy instructions, and then during the build process from that to full. So it'll already be in partial once it's published. So this library, this update one right here, it's at charles.org/update. It's already set up correctly. It's new. I wrote it, 3 weeks ago or something like that. So when you generate a library, it should already be set up for you. You only need to partially compile if you're publishing the library to npm. If you are using the library internally, say like within an NX repository, and you're not actually publishing to npm, and your whole pipeline is already using Ivy, then you can actually set this to full, and it'll save you some additional compilation during the compiling step of your app. But for libraries that publish to npm, you need to set this to partial, or just not have it set at all. But we want to set it to partial so that we can slowly move the ecosystem forward. So if we set it to full, actually, and we try to publish this library, we should get an error that says you can't do that. So we'll check that out when we get to it. So this is referring to the NGRX Universal Rehydrate package within the repo. So let's take a look at that. NGRX Universal Rehydrate. So this is a package that I built, oh man, I don't even know now, quite a while ago. Oh, it's already set up for partial. So let's just take a look and see if maybe it's not published like that or not. Let's just see when this was built. So it's a library that I built, one of the last updates was quite a while ago. For if you're using Angular Universal and you're using NGRX, you can actually transfer your NGRX state using the Angular transfer state from the server to the browser, and it'll start your app up with the state already initialized within the NGRX state, so you don't need to like rerun all of your effects and your reducers and all that kind of stuff to pull data. It'll just like start the app up with all of the data set. It was kind of just a, can I do this more than anything else? I'm not using it, but it seems like some people are. So let's see why someone is thinking that this is not set up for Angular 14. So let's just have a random library here. Let's see if we get that compilation warning, and then we can see what this person means by it. So if we add it, can we see that? We can see that. Good. Okay. NGRX universal rehydrate. Okay, just checking to make sure that we posted to Twitter, I believe. Yes, we did. Let's go back here. Okay, so let's add this library. And then we should have a post install hook. And this is just a random package or random repo, demo repo that I generated last week for the other stream using NX. So it's up to date with Angular 14. So let's see if the post install hook. No, see, it doesn't compile it. So I wonder what this person's referring to. Oh, they might be referring to the, let's just go back to this repo now. It might give you a warning like, I guess it would have given us that in console. Okay, let's switch back one more time. And then remove it. I wonder if it'll say like pure dependency not met or something like that, because it's set up for a different version of Angular, like it's, you know, only allowing 12 and 13 or something like that. So let's see, so something like this, right? Maybe this person is running into a warning where my package isn't allowing Angular 14, even though it will technically work no problem. Let's see, let's just add it again. And if there's an error or a warning, yeah, here we go. See, this is probably what the person's talking about. Has incorrect pure dependency greater than 9. So that's pretty old. That shows you how long ago I wrote this library, and I've never updated the pure dependencies. So now that we know that, and that's the actual problem, it actually has nothing to do with the Ivy compilation. That, let's see, let's just take a look at the compiled assets for a second here. So yeah, we can see here that the pure dependencies for this library are all set to greater than 9. This isn't technically correct because it should work with 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. So let's update that today so that those warnings go away, and then we'll actually publish it to NPM. I'll demo the whole error for the full Ivy compilation while we're at it. Okay, so let's swap back over to this other repo, to the open source repo. And, okay, so in our package JSON, we have these pure dependencies here, right? So let's allow more than just that, just more than 9. Just say you can run any version above 9. I don't know if it works with 8, so there. So now what we're saying is this library will work with Angular and NGRX versions 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. I am not actually sure if NGRX has all of those versions. So let's double check that just to be sure. We'll go to NGRX and go to versions. So we have 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. Okay, so we should be good to go there. We're not incorrectly giving pure dependencies here. So that's good. So let's build that now. NGRX universal rehydrate. So that'll actually build the library now. We're already using partial compilation. And then, yeah, so you can see here compiling the Angular sources. So this issue that this person had, it's not really a problem. It's just a warning. I mean, JavaScript and Node developers, there's like, we ignore peer dependency issues quite often. The library does work with Angular 14, no problem. There's nothing specific to 9. The peer dependencies were just not set up for this person, for the npm to know that 14 was a valid version of Angular to use this library with. So we've compiled our library using Ivy compilation, partial compilation mode. Couple of different entry points here. You guys should be familiar with multiple entry points, but if you're not, what this means is if you import from just here, if you import, at Charles.org and NGRX Universal Carbohydrate, it won't pull in any assets from here and vice versa, unless they reference each other, of course. But that's a way that you can make your libraries more tree shakeable, so that you're not including all kinds of code. The perfect example of this is the Angular material library. So I think back in the day, I don't remember what version it was, but I think you imported a lot of stuff from @Angular/material, which means that you pulled in a lot of other stuff. So they added secondary entry points. So when you're importing, the buttons, it's only @Angular material/button. Now you only pull in the Angular material button code. You don't pull in any of the other stuff. So that's what secondary entry points are good for. Okay, so and then another reason I'm using here is because one entry point is only for the server stuff, so for Angular Universal, then the other one's for the browser side. Okay, so we have our peer dependency set up now. So now when we run, yarn add or npm I on this library in the future with any Angular version 9 through 14, that we should be good. It won't warn us. So we've already built it. So let's try and publish it now. I need to publish this. Oops. Packages NGRX Universal. Oh, my terminal's freezing. There we go. So if we publish this, we're probably getting an error. Yeah. So we've previously published 0.0.12. That's the current version. So we're gonna have to fix that before we publish. Let's increment our version number to 0.0.13. Rebuild it because the current dist assets are the version 0.0.12. And then, okay, now if we publish it, it should work fine. Yep. So you can see that we've now published the right version. I should get an email soon. Okay, so now let's hop back over to our other demo repo. And we will add the new version. And those peer dependency warnings should be gone now. No. So what version of Angular is this using? So why? It's allowing, oh, we don't have store and platform server installed, that's why. So if we add and Angular platform server, right, obviously our peer dependencies are not met because they're not even installed at all. But if you notice the Angular core and whatever else was missing, browser and common, those peer dependency warnings are gone. So there we go. So you can see that they're gone now. The only one, so now we have other ones though, right? So we have our NGRX store, incorrect peer dependency, and then we're missing arc greater than 7.5.5 for ArcsJS. This demo repo is used in 7.4.0. Yeah, we could probably update that as well to allow our our package to accept, most ArcGIS versions. I don't think we depend on much, but NGRX store depends on these. So let's try and match that. Let's go to publish new version, and then get rid of those peer dependencies as well. Just to demo that once again. So let's go ArcGIS, and then we'll go greater than we'll go 6.5.5 or greater than 7.5.0. I think that's what yeah, that'll be fine. And then let's update our version once more. We can run the build, because if we don't update the version, when we go to publish again, then we're going to run into an issue with conflicting version numbers. Okay, there we go. And then if we publish it, we should have 0.0.14 published now. And then we can go back over to our other repo and then install it. And hopefully this time we won't have those unmet peer dependency warnings. Oh yeah, right, because our demo repo is still using 7.4.0, so we still have this unmet peer dependency. But after this is done, let's update ArcGIS, and we'll see that they get that warning will go away. So we'll do greater than 7.5. So now we'll see that this should update once that resolves the package. Okay. Now it's saying this demo repo has an incorrect peer dependency, but there we go. Don't know why it did that though. Oh, probably because I put that in there. There we go. Okay, cool. So let's go back to that other. So we got rid of the peer dependencies now, so that's probably what that person was referring to. I assumed it was the Ivy compilation, but I guess it wasn't. Let's double check all of our other libraries now, just to see if they're configured correctly or not. So let's see, check this DNS validator one. Yep, it has some dependencies, and peer dependencies are all set up correctly. Compilation mode partial. This one's also new, but let's just double check it just to be safe. So yep, it had greater than 11 essentially. I haven't tested it with anything but below that. Oh, right, and then the tsconfig. There we go. So that's right. What else we got in here? This is not Angular. This isn't Angular. This is not Angular. Not Angular. NGRX data WebSocket. So this one has 3 inside of it. So this has another. This is another library that I built, which is essentially a plugin for Angular, or it's not Angular, NGRX data. So NGRX data uses REST as its typical transport mechanism between client and server. So what this does is actually provides a client library and a library for Nest.js, so that you can use WebSockets as a transfer mechanism and actually get real-time NGRX data between your client and your server, and then multiple people can connect to the same stores and then get real-time updates. I've done a couple talks on that. They're on YouTube somewhere. If you want to see them, let me know, and I can share them on Twitter. Okay, so let's double check to make sure these are compiled correctly. Server, that's a Nest library, so not Angular. We have nothing to do there. Core, this is just a classic npm library. There's nothing Angular specific. It's essentially just types and utility files and stuff like that. But client is the actual Angular library. So this one, let's see. any version greater than 2 for socket.io. I've been meaning to rewrite this library using the new version of socket.io because it got rewritten in TypeScript, so it has all the type definitions and stuff like that, but I just have never gotten around to it. But we do have the same issue here where core and common are going to throw that unmet peer dependency issue if we run into someone installing this on an Angular app that's anything above 10, right? So let's fix this up a little bit, and we'll do 11. There's nothing like crazy specific here, so it should work totally fine on these other Angular versions. Angular is really good with backwards compatibility, so I'm not too worried about that. Let's do this. Okay. And then one thing that I didn't notice is that we don't have a peer dependency on NGRX data in this. So let's pull up NGRX data here and add a peer dependency for it because, well, it's a plugin for NGRX data, so we kind of need that. Let's make you a little bit smaller. I don't want to be covered. There we go. Okay. Versions. So we have 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. Same as NGRX store. All of those packages get published together. They're in a mono repo, kind of just like how Angular does it. So remember how with the previous example we were doing NGRX store and we did the greater than 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We're going to do the same thing here. So at NGRX data. And we will do the same thing as the other ones. We'll say you can use this with 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Okay, we're going to need to update the version to 4. And then we already have compilation mode partial up here, so that's good. So let's build it now. Socket. Oh, I haven't built this in a while, so I don't even know if it works. Oh, right. I guess it needs to be client. And then what? Our default configuration is not set to production, which means if we were to build it with just this TS config, oh, it has compilation mode partial set as well, so we're good to go there. But we should be using the production configuration when we can. So let's build it. You can see that we're building with partial Ivy compilation mode. And then, there we go. Okay. So let's publish this now. Just packages. What are you doing? WebSockets. Publish that. Why did that not work? Packages. Oh. Probably because it's nested in another folder. It is not that, it is this. There we go. Okay. So we just published a new version of NGRX data WebSocket client as well, so that we aren't going to run into the unmet peer dependency issues with that package. Okay, we just did this one. This isn't Angular. This isn't Angular. Arc's dynamic component. This one should be set up already. It is not. Okay, that's good to know because we're actually using this one in production. Oh no, there it is, right there. But it's not set in the production config. Also, one thing I just noticed is that we have enable Ivy true here. We don't want that. We want to partially compile we want to partially compile it and then let the Angular app itself show up, or like do the Angular compilation. Hey Jason, how's it going? Yeah, I can share those talks. I'll share them out on Twitter after this. I'll have to go hunt them down. They were, I think, the first talk I ever did was the NGRX data WebSocket one. So that was quite a while ago. Okay, so now that we removed the enable Ivy because you're not supposed to have that enabled, and then we have the compilation mode set to partial. So let's compile this now. And if you're not sure what this library is, this is probably the one that I'm most proud of. It is a library for dynamically rendering components in your application based off essentially any observable. Okay, so what? Oh, right, it's not supposed to go in there. It's supposed to go in Angular compiler options. That is a different setting. It's not part of tsconfig. It's part of the Angular compiler itself. So that's why that was throwing that error there. So anyway, back to Arc's dynamic component. Let's just pull that up here. This repo also has demos and examples for all of these packages, so you can clone the repo and run them and see them for yourself. So this library, what it does is you can dynamically render all of your components into dynamic outlets. So you register your all your dynamic components, very similar to how the router works, by using either load children or load component. It also fully supports standalone components, assuming you're using Angular 14, or you can continue using the module system. Yeah, here, I'll show her a link right here. There you go. So yeah, as long as you're using Angular 14, it supports standalone components and modules, so you can use both. So yeah, you can just register your components, and then inside your application, you can subscribe to any observable you want, and then pass in whatever the manifest ID is. So it's essentially the unique ID of the component, and render that into an outlet. So either Arc's dynamic outlet or a lazy one, which will render using the observe intersecting API of browsers. So either or. I built this because we needed a way to manage multiple router outlets in the same application, and I went down this whole essentially of the named outlets or auxiliary routes or whatever you want to call it with Angular, and it did not work the way I needed it to, or I wasn't able to figure it out. It was so complicated. Everything was way worse. So I built this library so that you, like in our application, what we have is our main screen, which is like a website builder. And then the sidebar, you can click through the menus, and it's like a heavily, deeply nested menu. And that's all rendered via this library. And it's all based off of a query param. So when that query param changes, the dynamic outlet in the sidebar changes based on whatever manifest gets matched. The reason that I switched it to using this instead of just using like the mat side nav or stepper, like the material stepper or something like that, is because there's got to be, I don't know, 40 or 50 components, just the main components, and then all of their children as well, making up all of those steps. So it's a lot to just have in the template itself. So this and it lazy loads all of the components because they all get compiled down to their own separate little bundles, just like lazy loaded routes do. So you only pull them when you need to, but you can also configure it so that, where is it here? You can configure the library to preload them or load them on a certain priority. So like when the browser's idle, go ahead and download them, or load them right away, or whatever it might be. So yeah. Let me know if you have any problems with it, Jason. The currently deployed version or published version, I'll go to the versions page here, 0.2.3. This only works with Angular 14. If you are still using anything below Angular 14, you need to use 0.1.9. I should probably put a note on that in here, but I just haven't done that yet. So yeah, that's, anyway, kind of a tangent on what we were just talking about, but that's this library. So let's fix this up, and I'll actually add a note to this README because we're going to do a publish. Okay. So anybody know how to do notes, like a note in Markdown? I don't even know how to use italics. Notes formatting, Markdown. I want notes. Show me. Oh, this looks complicated. Oh, that's not what I'm looking for. That's like for taking, like jotting notes down. Okay, well, we'll just put a note here. I think that's italics, isn't it? Oh no, that's bold. Note. There we go. Okay. Just so people don't get all messed up. Put at in front of the line. Okay, let's try that out. And star. Ah! Amazing. Nice, thank you. Porting her up. Any version will work. Cool. Okay, so we just updated our README just to mark that down because I know some people might get hung up on that. One of the other hit the browser open. So we just updated the notes so that it shows up like this. I don't want that there though. There we go. Okay. So one of the other things I wanted to note here is that with this refactor, I actually went ahead and refactored it to using provider functions. So in the Angular 14 plus version of it, there's no modules whatsoever. It's all just provider functions, standalone components. The dynamic outlet is a standalone component, so you import it using the imports array. You don't import the dynamic outlet module and use the component or anything like that. So the bundle size was actually reduced by doing that as well. So that's a little nice to do because standalone components are awesome. Okay, so let's just make sure that we have this built again because we just updated the README. So we want the new README in there. And then once that's compiled, so you can see that we're compiling with Angular partial compilation. We don't have an Ivy fully enabled. So now let's publish it. Packages, and then what are we publishing here? We're publishing Rx dynamic component. Now I think we forgot to update our version. Yep, so we can't override it. So let's change this to 0.2.3 and then rebuild and then publish it yet again. If anybody has any music suggestions, throw them out there. I usually have music rolling while we're doing this. Okay, so we're going to publish this now, and then I must have published 0.2.3 at some point. Yeah, I think we just talked about that, but I never committed the change. Okay, so I published it, then didn't commit it. Let's build it one more time. I wonder how many downloads this has. 20 weekly downloads. Nice. Okay, so we're compiling. Okay, now let's publish it one more time. Okay, we're published and it's there. We refresh. We now have our version published. We should have our note here. Yep. And it'll be compiled correctly to Ivy partial compilation mode. Notice that, remember all that peer dependency talk we were talking about earlier? This only supports 14. So yeah, because it uses standalone components. I believe I use the inject function and all that kind of stuff. So, and that's only available in Angular 14. And then yeah, update. We already talked about that one, but we already made sure that one was working correctly, but I'll just talk about what it actually does. So this is also a really fun one. In your component, sometimes you have, say, like an NGRX component store, or you have like a service with a subject or something like that, where you want to hook into the setting of an input and then set that value in the corresponding store so that you can then use reactive programming to, like, pipe through it and then display something in the template. So rather than having to hook into the at input and then make a setter and then you call, this dot service dot update, what this does is actually creates a decorator so that you can just decorate an input with this decorator, and then your store, whatever this service might be, when this value gets set, it'll actually just set that property in the store for you. Now you don't need to hook into the the setter and have all this extra boilerplate code, because once you hook into the setter, if you also want to read the plain value, you need a getter as well, and then you also need a private variable. So this decorator patches like a setter and a getter onto this property, so that whenever it changes, it sets the value into the in the store, whatever your store may be. So this store is just like a, here's a little demo, just a random little store, set counter 2, right? And then it'll just next a behavior subject. So now you can actually subscribe to store.counter and store.counter2, and it'll render these values whenever this input changes. But it's all done reactively, so you can use all of your pipes and mark it as dirty, and do all of your different selector type information. We built this to use with NGRX component store, but you can use it with any injectable. You could probably even use it with like directives if you have a directive on your component, because technically you can inject their directive, I believe, and then as long as you have a method on it that matches the property. So by default, it's set capital the property, but you can override it. So you can say, well, this is my setter function. Yeah. Oh, actually, while we're here, let's update the README, because we found a caveat with this recently. So what we noticed was it only works when the property is initialized. So even if it's initialized to undefined, it will work, but it has to be initialized. So doing this would never trigger it, even subsequent sets of it. So I haven't quite figured out how to get around that yet, but if your property is optional, like say you had, like this, as long as you do equals undefined here, that will work. But that won't work. As it should be, as what should be exactly, as it should be undefined. It should be undefined if you're leaving it out. It just needs to be explicitly set to undefined. Otherwise, this at update decorator doesn't work. I don't think it can patch the... yeah, correct. If you should probably not be having undefined properties on your component if you can help it. Like, well, there's a compiler flag for that. Strict property initialization, I believe it is. Let's see. Strict property. I think it's strict property initialization. Yeah. Oh, it's a TypeScript one. Yeah, okay. So strict property initialization. If you have your code in strict mode, you have strict true, or you have this property set, then your property should never be undefined. But obviously you can still make them undefined. But like, try not to, because you'll run into less edge cases. But if you do need to make them undefined, then you need to make them explicitly undefined for this library to work, because otherwise it can't patch the value onto it correctly. I don't know why this keeps formatting. Oh, okay. You don't actually need, Jason, you don't need the star. I think you told me to put the star in there. Unless you meant just the arrow, and you did quote arrow star by accident. Yeah, so caveat, properties must be explicitly defined. If they are optional properties, set them to undefined. Otherwise, this library cannot patch the correct setters onto the property, and thus it doesn't work. Not like the hugest deal, obviously, but still kind of annoying that you have to do that. So, okay. Great, now we have this README updated. Let's push an update for it. And then publish it just so that that README gets updated. Okay, so Ivy compilation mode, we're good to go there. Okay. List packages update. Okay, there we go. New one published. Oh, go look at my password. There we go. And our caveat. Perfect. Great. I've been meaning to add that for a while now, so this is the perfect case to do that. Yeah, that's it. That's really all I wanted to cover in this stream. I mean, that was more than I planned to cover. I thought we were just going to fix a library and then call it good, but I guess not. Yeah, anybody have any questions about what we talked about here? Otherwise, I will see you all next stream. I'll try and give some more warning next time just so that hopefully some more people can join. But I appreciate you guys for joining. Talk to you soon. Thanks again.